Hi, I'm Darren Long from Delta Harbour Assets. And on this week's Hard Money Show, let's break down the barriers and talk about all the bullshit out there. Let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about housing. Let's talk about the CPI number, 8.3% in the US. How does this impact you? And why do you need to own gold and silver? Stay tuned. We'll cut through that and much, much more here on the Hard Money Show.
There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey, everybody. Welcome again. Another edition of Hard Money is upon us. It's upon you. So let's get it happening. You want to reach out to Darren and the team anytime. Probably know the number by now. If not, here it is for the first time over the next few minutes. I'll give it to you a couple more times. 1-877-323-GOLD. DeltaHarbor.com, obviously. Delta Harbour with the U. That goes for all the social media as well, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those good things. The Hard Money Podcast. Let's get into this. Things are looking a little, well, it's a bit of a shite show. Let's face it, Darren. What's happening out there? Gold, silver, the markets, cryptos, housing. I don't know, throw something else in the fire. Honestly, seriously, what's going on out here?
Well, I'll tell you, honestly, John, it's hard to do a show when this is starting to come to a head, so to speak. And although we talk about it, and we have been, and I will tell you, as I will throughout the show, that I'm proud of the fact that our team has been able to uncover this. I mean, look, we're up against major media moguls in the gold and silver world, in the mainstream media, people who have access to millions and tens of millions of dollars worth of research and data and analytics. And our team here has been saying for the better part of the last couple of years, certainly since the onset of COVID, that we better watch out because inflation is going to set in, that all this money printing is going to cause inflation. In fact, since 2004, John, it's been one of the cornerstone fundamentals of why I believe gold and silver are going to experience much higher prices than where they are now, let alone the fact that they've averaged so well in terms of the year to year. And we've got those moments, 2004, 6, 8, 11, 2020, in which both gold and silver have done nothing but make people money. It's ridiculous. And they're up against a big sea of blue chip stocks and paper products and everything that gold and silver aren't, and we're watching all this happen right in front of our eyes, and it's like a slow moving train that's about to crash into a crowd of people. I mean, it's the saddest thing to watch, and unfortunately the greater majority of people are not going to see it coming, John, and today's show should be about that warning to people to listen up, to just take 10 minutes of their time, 20 minutes of their time to really dig into some research and be open to the idea that there are other options out there that you can use to protect yourself. And I've been really struggling as of the last couple of weeks to come up with a way to accurately describe the current state of both the US and the Canadian economy, because truthfully, none of the traditional labels seem to apply. A few weeks ago, we talked about recession. We've been touting recession for a very long time. In fact, John, you and I on numerous occasions over the last decade, we've made the argument that the US, the world's largest economy, never really actually got out of the recession in the traditional sense, because once you bring money printing into the fold, and money printing is the sole reason why an economy expands, well, that's not organic growth. That's fake growth. That's false growth. That's false hope. And people pin their entire savings on that every year when they make decisions about where to put their money, what their wealth strategy should include. And unfortunately, we've got to the point now where we're seeing that unfold in the opposite direction. And if we look at inflation as an example, we know this week it's out of control, 8.3% reported in the US, which means street level somewhere around 10+%, probably closer to 15%. And usually it's well above that. And of course, in terms of inflation being a problem when an economy is overheating. But of course, the US economy, the world's largest economy still, it's not overheating, John. In fact, I would argue that if GDP falls once more in a quarter, that is the traditional definition of a recession. It's happened this last quarter. And if it happens again this quarter, well, then, of course, that's how we traditionally are going to define a recession. And that would make it easy for me to say recession. There it is. Maybe stagflation, higher inflation, interest rates. That dreaded word stagflation, John, too. We don't want to say that too often, but we have suggested that stagflation is going to be a problem, that this is where we would end up going in both the Canadian and the American economies. And for that reason alone, I've gone back and looked at the history books, and what I saw in 1970, I believe, and it's unfortunate to say it, John, but I believe is going to pale in comparison to what we're going to experience. And looking at 1970 stagflation might be a gentle way of describing the pain that this economy is going to go through in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned that dreaded word inflation there again, and those keeping score, probably like you just mentioned and heard the CPI reading in the U.S., 8.3%, big number, but does it really reflect, the truth of the situation down there and up here, I guess, as well, right?
Well, John, that's the problem here in this situation, because it doesn't reflect the reality of the situation. The Bureau of Labor Statistics in the U.S. came out this week and said, hey, inflation, 8.3%. And to me, that's BS. We all know it, that things are rising much faster than 8.3%. Cost of gas, clothing, food, cars, housing, everything. I mean, everything that matters anyway. So whatever the hell they want to measure in those bloody baskets, they will do in order to make it look rosy as possible, and to keep this facade of bullshit happening that's constantly on the regular. We listen to the mainstream news and we're going to get fed with it every day. And this is the absolute truth. And so unfortunately, it doesn't accurately reflect the situation. If inflation, in fact, John, if inflation was calculated, and you can go no further than our good friend John Williams over at shadowstats.com. It's a great website. If it was calculated the way it was back in the 1980s, 1980 was the last year they did it, the official rate of inflation right now would be well over 15% in the US, the world's largest economy. And that is far worse than at any point during what was the Jimmy Carter era back then, because inflation actually got up to below that. And mortgage rates at that time were double digits, 20+%. And if you got a mortgage that was in the low teens or higher mid-teens to high teens, you were ecstatic. I mean, you couldn't believe it. I mean, I remember my parents going through that situation, and they were ecstatic because it went from 14% down to 12% in the early 1980s. And if you can believe it, the real rate of inflation is now the highest that has ever been in the entire modern history of the United States. And, very closely is our country, Canada, right behind that. So when our report comes in the near term, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have another expectation that it's going to go higher. Now, the banks are going to tell you it's in control. Macklem, head of the Bank of Canada, he's going to tell you it's in control. This is going to lie to you outright. I mean, this is what they do. They're liars. They tell absolute BS stories all the time about their economy. They told you they were taking care of it, but they were late to the game, way late to the game. They kept the money cheap. They let all their buddies into the game as easy as they wanted to get in. They let all these paper markets grow to oblivion. They let the valuations of stocks get sky high to the point that they're historically the highest they've ever been. And ultimately, we're going to pay for this, John, and we're going to pay big time for this because, you can throw any term out there that you want. And meltdown, that's a term that's come to mind. I've heard said by many clients over the last couple of weeks, but I don't think that completely captures what we're facing either. Of course, both Trudeau and Biden say that they have plans, and both insist that reducing inflation is among their top economic priorities. Meanwhile, tens of millions of ordinary Canadians and Americans, they continue to suffer deeply. And, consumer prices are spiraling out of control. I even saw this week, to be honest with you, I was watching BNN. I even saw them mention that in the US, that Americans are now skipping meals to save money.
Wow.
And also to make ends meet, which is a very scary thing. And if people are skipping meals already, what will things be like in a year from now when economic conditions are even worse? In Canada, there have been multiple reports on this show and many others like it, in which it has been said that statistically, the largest percentage of Canadians living within $500 of bankruptcy is existing as we speak right now. That's historically speaking. And so, if you're looking around the corner and you got a buddy who's telling you everything's rosy, odds are it's not. Odds are that they're slipping, that they're having trouble making ends meet. People don't realize this, but we are, John, by definition, extremely vulnerable right now in our economy. And when the next major downturn strikes millions upon millions of Americans and Canadians, they're going to be instantly wiped out. And I mean gone, like life savings completely annihilated. Will they recover? Maybe. But the problem is the aging population means that they won't have enough time to get back to a standard of life that's decent. They'll be scrounging, going back to work, coming out of retirement in droves and droves. And if you look at the, it's just a problem. We're going down a path, and you can sense from my frustration and what to say and how to say it, John, that we're going down a path of change right now, a path of change that's bringing about a necessity for you as an investor, for you as the controller of your finances, as the person that your family relies on to make smarter decisions, right? I mean, this is the problem. We're here now. We are on the precipice of the next systemic economic collapse, whether you want to call it recession, stagflation, depression, whatever the hell you want to call it, doesn't matter. We're there on that doorstep right now. And gold and silver, as far as I'm concerned, should be part of the strategy to protect and to grow your wealth, John. Absolutely, 100%, bar none.
Again, 1-877-323 gold is the way you reach out to Darren anytime. Get on this if you've not researched or at least looked at getting precious metals into your portfolio as part of this to hedge your downfall, which could be coming very soon. Get on it, and if it's not enough that we're seeing the winds of change guide this economy in a new direction, the idea that good friends and good family are living paycheck to paycheck, our neighbors, skipping meals at this point, where are we, a third world country? Like it's a scary thing, pal. Really scary.
Who wants to admit to it though, John? I talked to a neighbor just the other day, family of 6, 2 kids living in the house still, and 4 relatives, adults living in the house. I live in a decent community. For the most part, mostly everybody there makes a fairly good living, a higher standard of living than normal. And he says to me that what are you doing? He knows what I do for a living. So what are you doing to manage these increases in costs? And I told him some of the things that we had discussed in this very show. And he said, I've left it too late. I've got working kids. I've had to tell my youngest son, who's just turned 19, he can't go to university. We can't afford it. And I don't want him taking debt. And I said, you have 3 incomes, and the 4th is a grandmother that lives in the house. You all live under the same roof. And he says, Darren, I've been working with Magna for 40 years, 30 years, and I can't make ends meet. I said, I just find that incredible to believe. And he said, I can't. I don't have a standard of living that's off the chart. And they don't. They live very modestly. Their 2 sons both work. One's in his 20s, and the other is, as I said, just turning 19. He's been forced to go work full time. And if things suddenly shift, John, right now we're living on the edge. And it's fine as long as a paycheck keeps coming in like clockwork. You'll always be that 500 ahead, 800 ahead, 1,000 ahead. But if things suddenly shift, John, and millions upon millions of Americans and Canadians find themselves in poverty, you could see the world change overnight. And that's where we are right now. So this is why when we talk about wealth strategy, we're not solely mentioning gold and silver for the love of this, because if you wanted to be part of this business and be doing what we're doing, you'd quickly find out that this is a job in which, you're not promised tomorrow. This is a job which in many cases you have to give bad news to people constantly. But ultimately, the good news is that those who have taken the time to investigate gold and silver as a way to diversify their wealth strategy have figured out already that what they do have, and for those that can afford it, this is a smart way to go, John. This is an asset class that you have to own. Physical bars and coins, gold and silver. And you have to do it now, right now.
You know, it would also appear like the markets are, experiencing a shock of sorts that are leading them to big point loss. You just got to, open up a newspaper, look at the TV. I mean, billions of dollars evaporating in value this week alone, right? Again, really scary news.
Yeah. And the problem is that we'd be negligent if we didn't mention it, and unfortunately it's negative news. And who likes it? Because one thing that gold and silver people get criticized of is that they're doomers, that they gloom and doom all the time. And it's not true. It's just the fact that gold and silver happen to be part of an ecosystem in which, generally speaking, when they perform really well, the rest of your assets aren't. So, of course, from time to time, it seems like it's doom and gloom. It can't be avoided. But look at the markets this week. Tesla, Apple, Netflix, Virgin Galactic, Revlon, Goodyear, Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, all these brands are home names that everybody knows, blue chips, all down, all losing value, right? I mean, Dow Jones Index down 14% year to date as we tape this show here on Thursday. TSX down 8%, right? In the middle of a surge in commodity prices. Commodity prices, which have, in some cases, had historic all-time highs. Not gold and silver yet, if you're astute enough to recognize that. Yet another reason to own both of them. The NASDAQ, down 28%, right? When do people smarten up and start realizing they got to open up their eyes? Gold, up 1%, right? It's not killing it. We're not up 20, 30%. But in a year in which I could lose a substantial amount of the value of my portfolio, you better believe holding an asset like gold that's up only 1% or even broken even appeals to me a whole lot more than losing 20, 30, 40% of the value of my nest egg. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And people will, find out about it after the fact, John. Summer season right now, everybody's getting ready, getting their campers ready, their cottages open, the boats in the water, the sea dews are going fishing. They can't wait for that warm weather. The gardening has happened. Gazebo is up. It's party time. Then you're going to get blindsided. You're going to get hit because you're not paying attention. And mark my words, it happens every single time. And they'll tell you, hold on for the long term, because every market comes back and surges to a higher point. Sure, it does. But why do you have to feel that pain in the middle? Why would I want to feel all that pain in the middle? What if next year was my year? What was next year going to be if I was going to buy that home in France? I was going to put my kid through university, or 2 years from now. I've just lost that opportunity if I sit and hold. So no, I'm not your planner. I'm not your financial advisor. But go talk to them. Ask them about this. It's a real situation. And ask them about gold and silver. They cannot keep putting gold and silver down as tangible, high-quality assets that have been around for thousands and thousands of years that hold purchasing power. I can show them 20 charts that'll prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. The data is indisputable. But ultimately, take a look, research, take 10 minutes out of your time to give us a call and just find out what's happening and why it's happening, because we'll be happy to share it with you. Absolutely 100%.
And that number, by the way, again, 1-877-323-GOLD, anytime to reach Darren and the crew. Delta Harbour with a U, of course, Delta Harbour, and YouTube.com/Delta Harbour to watch these or any other podcasts that we've done in the past. Want to talk losses. How about your good friends in that crypto space? How's that looking, brother?
Well, I'll tell you something, John. I want to be honest with our viewers. I love the technology within the crypto space.
Sure, I agree.
Okay? Yep. I love the technology. I think it's smart, it's relevant, it's necessary. It's part of that ecosystem that spawned NFTs and what might become of that. And all of that is new, untested, uncharted. It's never been through a downturn. It's never been through recession, depression, stagflation, inflation. It's been around for a decade. And ultimately, John, right now, that's probably where the biggest and worst news of all is coming from. Everybody touted Bitcoin as being the savior, the replacement for gold. The idea that the wealth you own could be stored in something that doesn't exist, right? They call it a token because they have to, because what else do you call it? Air, right? It's a bunch of zeros, right? I mean, quite frankly, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I never adopted cryptocurrencies. I have close colleagues who have, and if you have deep pockets, go ahead. If you can buy on the dips and you have the money to do it, go ahead. These are some of the best values we've seen. But cryptos are crashing harder than Stephen Lecce at a frat party, buddy. You know, you know, look at one of the largest exchanges in the world, Coinbase, right? It's coming apart like a $40 cheap suit.
It's a bad suit.
Oh, 250, I think, $billion in Coinbase. And they're saying that it could go bankrupt. Clients could lose all their assets. Gone in one foul swoop, gone. Jeez, just like that. And ultimately, I mean, you know, this is where it's at. So, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. It's not the savior. Bitcoin isn't the savior. Bitcoin isn't doing what gold does. It hasn't, you know, anywhere near performed what gold has performed in the times when it means the most so far. And yeah, Bitcoin went up in value, made billionaires everywhere, all over the world. Ethereum, XRP, Sol, all the big cryptocurrencies that people invested in. Sure, like any speculative asset, they went and plunged money in there and something became bigger than it was, because everybody had this belief, this critical belief that it was the way of the future. It's not, John, not yet. That's for sure. And we're seeing it play out right in front of us. And ultimately, you know, look at Bitcoin. It's down 38.5% year to date, just this year, right? Wow. It's supposed to be the big savior. You know, Ethereum down 48.5% today, as of this year to date. XRP down 55% year to date. These are three of the biggest cryptocurrencies by volume in the world, and they've lost, you know, near half their value average. Brutal. And so, you know, where does this insanity stop? Thinking that something such as a non-physical token will emerge as the way to providing stability in a replacement worldwide for something like gold, right? It doesn't matter if whole countries buy Bitcoin. It doesn't matter if the richest people in the world own Bitcoin. If it doesn't perform and it doesn't do what people touted it would do, then you're realizing what we've realized for a long time, that it was bullshit. Yeah. And that the reasons why you hold a cryptocurrency are not because it's a replacement for gold, but it's another way to diversify your portfolio. And when you understand what a crypto is, and when you understand what the technology can do, then you understand what the wave of the future is going to be. And that's why people just jump into these things. How many countries bought subprime debt? And at the time they bought it and they announced it, do you think that their people thought it was a bad thing?
No, exactly.
Ask Iceland, right? You know, ask the other countries that bought subprime debt from the US, AAA rated. They're lying bunch of bastards that they were, you know, and that's the problem, that this was what it comes down to. It's insanity and the thinking that something can only go up in value. No different than the real estate we're watching unfold right now. It's just lost 10, 20% already around the GTA and other places. You know, and I feel sorry for people who went and dove in at the deep end thinking it was going to be 10 feet deep and hit their head in 3 feet of water, you know, and now they come up and they, you know, what the heck happened? I'm seeing stars. Because the volume is still there, and because the thought and the process is all still there, and all it is the people who have the deepest pockets of all that are coming in and buying it on the cheap, which is great. If you can afford it, do it. By all means, come in and buy some cryptocurrencies. The rest of you, it's a bloodbath, right? But if you want something, seriously, John, let's get back to gold, because if you want something that's a store of value, something that has a track record, thousands of years, something that protects purchasing power in times of inflation and the threat of inflation, I got something. Gold, silver, right? That's all we do. And it's why we do it. We're not here to appease the stock people. We're not here to appease people who want to trade futures, ETFs, right? We're not here to exchange money for people. We're here because we want to put tangible, hard assets that have been known since the dawn of time into people's hard-earned money strategies, right? We know how hard you work. If I'm talking to that average investor right now and they're watching this podcast, I know how hard it is to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. We built this business, blood, sweat, and tears, 60, 70-hour weeks, putting together what we thought would be the best platform to engage with people and making ourselves the guinea pigs. In 2004, it's the very first thing I did. I started buying gold and silver and using all our systems to try and figure out what the best process was. We fine-tuned it. We've got options, go to the website, check them out. But John, right now, I want people not only to think about gold, but also silver. Right now, silver is down about 11% on the year. Okay. And of all the commodity space, all the commodities that have risen year to date, silver is the one that remains the most undervalued on the face of the earth. It's less than 50% of its all-time high. And yet people still shit on it every day like it's nothing, like it's meaningless. When in the reality is, this is a commodity which is used in every single thing we do day to day. All the electronics we have, solar panels, it's used as a catalyst in bearings. It's in cell phones, laptops, iPads, tablets, computers, cars, washers, dryers, fridges, switches. It's in everything we touch, John. We can't live without it. And yet there it is, $21 and change. 21 friggin' dollars in change.
Yeah.
And I talk to my colleagues throughout Canada, our suppliers throughout Canada and the US, and everybody is dumbfounded. Nobody can imagine, a day in which we get by this. But that's exactly what the likes of the richest and most elite do. They buy when everybody else is fearful, and they sell when everyone else is greedy. Right now, people are fearful to do anything. They're fearful to do anything. I'd say get out of the stock market, but what do I know? I mean, I only sold off everything well ahead of this. I mean, nothing, right? I did it in 2010.
Yeah.
We had to be sold off and bought back. That was the turn of that economic climate, that next situation up, and we did it. But ultimately, you have to hold something that's of value. Gold and silver are of value.
It seems to you guys, you've been right all along. We've been talking on the show for a long time, from being among the first to talk about inflation to being spot on in your call for following the housing market, and being dead on, bang on about how this next big economic breakdown is going to create a mad rush of investors moving into gold and silver in whatever form, we hope physical. But what do you think about that?
Well, for me, the challenge has always been to make sure that I practice what I preach. What we preach is to buy on the dip. In practice, it's not always easy. It's not perfect. At $23, we would have said silver is a great buy. At 22, we think it's crazy that people aren't just buying this up left and right. Yeah. At 21 and change, where it is now, I said it last week, it's like walking to the supermarket and your favorite thing to buy every week, which costs a lot of money right now because of inflation, costs $4 a can, let's say, $5 a can, $8 a bag, whatever it is. It's now on sale for 50% off. It's not broken. It's not outdated. It's still good. It's just the manufacturer decided to have a sale. And you don't know the reasons behind that sale. You just know that that day there's no limit. So you're going to take 8 of those cans, 8 of those bags. And that's what we do with silver. And here's the best part about the silver story. We couldn't be happier that the paper price is so low right now because the physical is not. In our world, premiums are the highest they've been since I've been in this business. We look across the board and physical buyers, some of them that are new to this market, they walk in and they see the advertisement for what the price is, which comes from paper, not physical. And they see $21.75 for silver US. And then they say to us, Darren, you're showing an ounce of silver on your website for $28. How is it that you're charging 28, but the price is 21? Well, these are premiums that are charged on depending the type of coin or bar you're buying. And all we're doing is putting a markup on the cost that we paid to buy it from the Royal Canadian Mint, the British Mint, from a refiner in Switzerland, any number of different refiners around the world. And ultimately, we're bringing that to the public. But like I said, we practice what we preach. People didn't like premiums. We brought them the Delta Vault account, bulk bullion, right? We said, hey, listen, you want exposure to physical, not paper. Okay, we did that. We put it in the vault for you. We buy when it's low, when it's on the dips. We put it into the vault. Lots of silver, and I mean large industrial 1,000-ounce bars of silver, big holdings in gold, platinum, palladium, and we put it into the vault. And then people can buy it and pay zero in terms of those high premiums. They pay just the minimal amount of premium that would be afforded to somebody buying those 1,000-ounce bars like us. And so we're able to do that. We practice what we preached. When people said that premiums were too high, we cut down the product types we had. We have to offer certain types, but we got rid of a number of products in our product line that were just getting too expensive to buy. Because why should you have to wait for a move of $7, $8? I want you to be profitable with a move of $1, $2. So how do we get it more affordable? Yep. Well, we have ways around that as well. That's what we've done. 18 years in the business, and that's what this has become. So ultimately, John, when we talk about, this being a mad dash, yeah, supply is getting tighter and price is not moving up. It came off recently. Gold is hovering around even on the year, which is great, up 1%. I'll take that, no problem. And by next year, hey, gold could be at $3,000 an ounce. Wouldn't surprise anyone. None of my colleagues in this business would be surprised at all. In fact, most of them say it's going to be much higher. Wow. But even if it went to 26, 2,700, as an investor buying in the 1,900 range, 2,000 range, wouldn't you be ecstatic to be able to know you made a great decision? Wouldn't you be excited to know that if you bought silver now and you did it right, that in a year from now, when it's 50 or 60 or maybe 70, or God forbid, it could be $100+ an ounce, that you made one of the most exciting decisions of your life to protect your family, your wealth strategy, to diversify your wealth, to cut off and trim a little bit of the fat that's had a great run, made a ton of money, but now is just sitting there wondering what the heck is next? Well, I think that gold and silver are what's next. And I think that people should own it, John. And I think that if people take 10, 20 minutes of their time to just sit down at night, grab a drink with their loved ones, read a little bit of our site, set up an appointment to talk and ask questions, get to know us a little bit better, they'll be excited about what lies ahead. They'll hear the story of gold and silver, and they'll understand that the rest of what they're hearing has been absolute bullshit, that our government has no plan for inflation, that they're not going to be able to cure inflation. And in fact, that we have to, not we should, but we have to be sensible about our wealth strategy. It must be as diversified as possible. And that includes the ownership of physical gold and silver through Delta Harbour Assets, for sure.
Call the number to start, as Darren says, 1-877-323-GOLD. Just break it down quickly as we're getting to wrap up here, Darren. Different ways we can get in there. I mean, the e-store is probably the simplest and quickest right off the hop. They can do that while they're listening to the remainder of this podcast. The e-store at deltaharbor.com, Harbor with a U. What are the other options?
Oh, yeah. You go to the e-store, buy, send it home, right? Whether you want to start with a couple hundred or a couple mil, it doesn't make a difference. You can buy it through the e-store if you're comfortable enough. We'll ship it to you anywhere you are located. If you're listening to this podcast, we'll get it to you. We'll get it to a center close to you, fully insured, 1-to-1. We'll get it to you, no problem. If you want to take that a step further, take away the worry of keeping yourself safe and your family safe at home by storing it with us. Cost of storage is peanuts. It really is. And ultimately, what are you going to do? Are you going to pay a planner that never calls you, that never ever reaches out, that 2 or 3% a year? Or are you going to not worry about it, cut that fee in half to maybe 1% or maybe even less, depending on the amount of bullion you put into your storage account, and keep it insured in a safe place that's liquid? We have that option too. You could store it, put it in a vault, go visit it. We have many locations around the country as well as in other jurisdictions in the world. We can store in Toronto, Calgary, Texas, Delaware, Switzerland, Cayman Islands.
Love it.
Lots of options, right? I mean, I don't want to beat around the bush about this. There are advantages to doing that, but only you will know if it's best for you, but we can do that as well. And storage gives you the ability to pick up the phone. Hey, Darren, that 30,000 ounces of silver, I'd like to sell it right now. Let me put you on hold, John. I'll be right back with you. Boom. No problem. It's sold, John. Here's your price. I'll send the wire through. It'll be in your account within a few hours, a day, whenever. We can do that. That's possible. Another option, John, is registered accounts. Why not take advantage of it? Our government put it out there and dangles it in front of us and tells us to invest all the time, right? It's self-serving if you don't already know. It's what keeps the planners alive, registered accounts. But ultimately, if you want to put a good quality asset like gold or silver into your TFSA or your RSP, Delta does that. I set up the first account. We use Quest Trade. That's our partner in this. And you have to have a Questrade account, but you can put gold and silver, physical bars, coins into your registered accounts. And that is a beautiful way to keep it tax-free in that TFSA, or to defer like a normal RSP till retirement. Make your killing now, enjoy the ride, jump on the wave, let yourself make some money. And then maybe you take that profit, put it somewhere else into another market. And then, John, we already talked about the Delta Vault account. That's bulk bullion at its finest, which takes away that worry of premium. If you don't want to own a specific 100-ounce bar of silver, you don't care about your serial numbers. You just want somebody to oversee it for you. You want somebody to watch it, make sure it's there. And, every once in a while, you want to know that we've audited it or gone and checked the pile and it's all there. This is bulk bullion, and this is the finest way to avoid high premiums. We've done all the work. We've put in all the product for you. It's 1-to-1. You buy an ounce, you own an ounce. You buy 100 ounces, you own 100 ounces. You buy 10,000 ounces, you own 10,000 ounces. And the best part about this is not only have we set it up so that it's 1-to-1, but your metal is your collateral. So it's sitting there in the vault as collateral and can be used as a way to borrow. So if you want to extend the value of that and actually get a second level of value out of your metals, well, you can borrow against the value of your metals, or you can buy more metals with it. So if you see a dip happen and you're profitable, or you put in, 100,000 worth of gold or silver, and you want to buy a bit more with that, you can use your metal as collateral to loan up to 80% more product, like or different. You want gold, want to add some silver, you can do that as well. And then ultimately, John, you can have the best of all those worlds by combining everything together into one. And having a bit of each, and having your foot wet in each area. Have a little bit at home, safekeeping, sock drawer, safe deposit box, put a little bit in storage, have a little bit in a Delta Vault to avoid those premiums. Maybe push the envelope a little further by taking some collateral financing and upping your holdings. And then, of course, the registered accounts, TFSAs, RSPs. Those are easy. They all start by going to the website, John. That's how we do it.
And that is the way we do it for another podcast. You want to reach out. If you haven't thought about it already, just do it. It's all about information to start, right? You want to dip your toe, you can do that on the e-store. If not, give Darren and the team give him a ding and have a chat. It won't cost anything. It'll just take a few minutes, and it's 1-877-323-GOLD. That is how you do that. 1-877-323-GOLD on deltaharbor.com. And that goes for all social media outlets as well. And we'll catch you next time on the Hard Money Podcast.